Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Can You Hear Me podcast. I'm Eileen Rochford, CEO of the Harbinger Group, a marketing and strategy firm.
And I'm Rob Johnson, president of Rob Johnson Communications. Here at Can You Hear Me, we always look for fascinating guests who are leaders in their respective fields. Today, we are continuing our How They Do It series with a CEO who will give us insights into his leadership style, effective communication techniques, and unique role in financial services.
And his name is Mark Steffe. I've had a front row seat to his effective leadership in action because we have worked together throughout the past 5 years since he became CEO of First Command. Hello, Mark, and welcome to Can You Hear Me?
Hello, Eileen and Rob. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
We are honored to have you. And as we do with all of our guests, whether in the How They Do It series or not, we always like to start off learning a little bit more about you to kind of set the context. So before we dive deeper, why don't you give us a snapshot of what First Command does, as well as your professional journey?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. First Command is I'll call it mid-sized financial services company. We're headquartered in Fort Worth, Texas. We were founded by a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, Lieutenant Colonel Carol Payne. When he was getting out of the Air Force, he didn't see a financial services firms that truly understood the unique challenges of military families, a military lifestyle, the risks that come with that as well. And instead of going to work for another financial services company, he decided to start his own. There were a couple of major life events that hit him through his military career. One, seeing a lot of airmen killed in combat during World War II. And he saw the devastation that created for families, losing their primary breadwinner, their father, son, husband, what have you. And back in the States after the war, he saw what high inflation did to military retirement pay, and literally saw retirees running out of money before the end of the month. And those major life events for Colonel Payne is really what motivated him to start First Command. So his last duty station was what was Carswell Air Force Base here in Fort Worth, and he rolled off of that base and pretty much started First Command the next day. We're comprehensive in our approach. Everything starts with a financial plan. And then we not only do the planning component, but we also help our military and veteran families implement those financial plans through a combination of investment recommendations, insurance recommendations, and banking recommendations. We actually also own a bank. It's about $1 billion bank, and we're able to bring those services to bear for our clients as well.
What appealed to you about it? How did you get involved in First Command, and what appealed to you about it?
Yeah, my career 18 years prior to joining First Command was really in the wealth management business, dealing with high net worth and ultra high net worth clients. And I guess what made the most sense for me as I was going through the recruiting process, when you're at a wealth management firm, it's a lot of fun and very interesting helping wealthy families get wealthier. But we weren't changing lives. We weren't really helping people get to a different place financially, economically. We weren't having the same impact on their lives or their families. But when you come to First Command, you realize not only the struggles military families face, the challenges that they have that civilians don't have, the massive sacrifices they give for all of us, whether it's deployments, permanent change of station, which means they move every 2 to 3 years, spouse unemployment or underemployment, and to be able to step in and help these military families get on a path to financial security and stay on a path to financial security is, for me, easily the most rewarding work I've ever done in my 30 plus years in financial services.
Oh, this is wonderful. I always love hearing you talk about that. Heartwarming for sure, really. And it also, it's just close to like my heart because our firm is all about, and that's one of the reasons why we work with you guys, supporting organizations that are mission driven, which I'd love to get into a little bit with you. Maybe we can cover it in this next question, but I think our listeners would benefit from hearing you talk about the aspects of leading a mission driven organization and how different that is. particularly when it comes to communications internally and externally. So you can talk about that now or think about it, and we can get into it in the next question if you like. Up to you.
Yeah, we should touch on that now. It is a, well, I want to be careful how I say this, but it really is a luxury to be able to lead a mission-driven company. And I have lots of friends at other financial services companies, and a lot of times they wish they had that unifying mission like we have. Because if for us, we know who our client is. Our client is active duty and veteran military families. That's our focus. That's our passion. That's our reason for being here. And, you know, they say when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. I say easy. I think maybe easier. I don't know if the decisions are ever easy, but when we know who we're trying to serve and everybody rallies around that client, you know why you're coming to work every day. You know what work you're supposed to be doing. You know the impact of that work. And so when we have to make decisions, big decisions, tough decisions, we're all rooting for the same end user. We're rooting for our clients. And so everything is designed to try to, as I said before, to try to help get them on and keep them on a path of financial security. And there are a lot of great organizations out there with a lot of great people, but not always is clear on who the end client is, not always clear on what the real mission or vision of the company is, and to have everybody connected to the mission, whether it's field or home office. 91% of our advisors are veterans and or military spouses. A large percentage of our people in the home office have a military connection. And so when we're talking about taking care of military families, everybody gets it. They know that that's the goal, right? And so it makes it clear because we're not debating on who's this trying to benefit. It's always done with the client in mind.
Mm-hmm. And you also have a unique thing at First Command, I think, which is your values include the value of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there's a huge connection there for sure. Do you want to talk about that for a minute, and then we'll get into your leadership style?
Yeah. I mean, you can really look at the company really in like three big areas. We have a mission of coaching those who serve in their pursuit of financial security, a vision of lifelong financial security for our nation's military families, and these three core values of courage, love, and effectiveness. And every time we talk about core values, people always ask me about the love value. And of course, it doesn't mean romantic love. It really means, we define it as putting others' good ahead of our own. Courage is, not the absence of fear, but having the fear and taking the right action anyway. And effectiveness is all about doing what is right to achieve the best results. That love value is it is a hard one for people to sort of wrap their arms around. But once you understand it truly is about putting others' good ahead of our own, that gets me back to what we were talking about earlier. It connects right to the mission and vision of, making sure that we're looking out for our clients' best interests. A market, whether they're active duty or veterans, that historically don't make a lot of money, historically and notoriously aren't well educated when it comes to finances. So they truly do need the help, most of them, the help of a professional to figure out what the best path forward financially is. But those core values really keep us grounded. And one of the things I love about the core value of love is that when you talk about it being putting others' good ahead of our own, and then you think, what does the military do every day? They're constantly putting others' good ahead of their own, and I think it lines up really well to the market we're trying to serve.
And can I also just jump in and say that you just brought it up, Mark, about people, in the military are not making millions of dollars a year, typically don't have access to people like financial advisors. And you were talking about the mission-driven attitude that permeates your entire organization. And I would think it also makes you feel very satisfied to know that you're helping people who might not otherwise get that kind of help. And you said you can get together as a team and you can be all behind them and that sort of thing. I would think that would be very satisfying, because a lot of these people, a lot of these military folks who are putting their lives on the line for us every day wouldn't normally have access to something like this, and you're providing it.
Yeah, it is incredibly rewarding. And a few things on that note. I've never worked at a company where I get more cards or letters or emails from clients thanking me, for what First Command has done for them and their families from a financial perspective. It's truly rewarding. We are the only company of any size that serves the military in this fashion. A lot of great companies out there serving the military from a financial side, but we're the only ones with 700 advisors placed throughout the United States, most of them close to a military installation, that will sit down face to face, build a customized financial plan, help them implement that plan, and then coach them to stay on that plan as well. And kind of back to that mission and vision we were talking about, in addition to being a unifier, because it's so compelling, to your point, Rob, for a mid-sized company located in Fort Worth, Texas, the amount of talent we have at First Command, whether they're home office employees, field people. If you look at our board of directors, bank board or holding company board, our military advisory board, we attract an incredible amount of talent that I don't think you would normally see at a company of our size, but they're here because that mission brings them in. It attracts them to the company, and it keeps them at the company. And that's, like I said, across the board at First Command. It's compelling. And when people know the story and see the authenticity and the passion we have for taking care of our families, our military families, people want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Thank you. So like everything, familiarity kind of breeds contempt. If you're doing your job day in and day out at First Command, you can kind of lose sight of that mission. But you have managed in your time there to keep everyone so focused, both on the mission and big goals, transformation efforts, et cetera, that you've been kind of leading along throughout your 5 years. I'd love for you to talk about how you describe your leadership style, because I think our listeners would be interested to hear how you're using that style to great effect and impact. And of course, we're always talking about communications here on Can You Hear Me? So the role of communications in your leadership would also be interesting to hear about.
I've always felt that probably in most industries, but certainly in financial services, that most leaders are either builders or maintainers. And I'd like to think of myself as more of a builder. When I got here, and when I was fortunate enough to take over as CEO in January of 2020, the prior CEO did a great job of building the company and creating this incredibly solid foundation. So I wasn't tasked with fixing a bunch of problems. I and my leadership team really had this luxury of being able to focus forward and really think about what First Command can become as we move forward. And so communication has been a huge part of that. And while the mission and the vision and the core values that we talked about are unifying and compelling, what it wasn't doing was forcing us to think differently about what could this company ultimately become. Yes, we were serving a lot of military families, but there's far more need in military families than we have the supply right now to fulfill it. So we stole an idea from Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, and we came up with our big audacious goal of becoming the personal financial coach of our nation's military families. We rolled that out about 3.5 years ago, and it's been a very slow drip on trying to win the hearts and minds of our field force and our employees to really have them think differently and envision, well, things are going really well. We literally just came off of our best revenue year ever, best sales year ever. And at a time when things are going really well, we're challenging ourselves to think, how much better could it be? How many more military families could we serve than we already are? And can we serve them even better than we already are? And this big audacious goal was never meant to replace the mission or vision. I didn't put a time frame on it. There aren't any metrics on it. It's just a forcing function to say, yeah, why couldn't we be more? Why couldn't we be better? Why couldn't we be bigger and help take care of more military families? And so everything we did, that is all communication, because it is such an intangible thing. People are like, well, what are the specifics? How are we going to know? I'm like, well, don't worry about all that, right? Those details we'll fill in later. What I need you to do is believe that this can be done in the first place. And so it took, like I said, a few years and a lot of repetitive conversations to really help people think through it and then get excited about it. And right now, where before the idea was sort of being pushed on the field or the home office, now we've got folks pulling on it, saying, how do we do it? When can we do it? How can I get involved? And when you've got that, there's probably no real issue that you can't tackle. So I think communication, as I look back, um, whatever success I've had, whether it's in my career, I think communication is at the heart of it, whether it's written communication, one-on-one communication, presentations I make that come in various forms. This might be a little too much information for your podcast, but I believe in it so much. A few years back, when I was promoted into a role prior to this one, I actually sent a thank you letter to my 8th grade and my sophomore year English teachers because of the impact they had on me and my belief that my ability to communicate stems. And they were the very, stereotypical. They everything had to be perfect, everything had to be accurate, very precise. And of course, when you're going through middle school and high school, you think, geez, this is just a real big pain in the rear. And what am I getting out of this? And now that I look back, I'm like, I can tell you exactly what I'm getting out of it. And I think communication makes a huge difference. I'm a believer that 90% of problems can either be avoided or fixed through solid communication. And I try to be very clear, very transparent with folks about, first and foremost, why we're doing certain things, and then the what behind it, and the how behind it. I try to be incredibly approachable in my approach, so people feel that they can interact with me. And if I can open up those channels of communication, we can sniff out issues faster. We can jump on opportunities faster. One of the things I think I'm pretty good about, and at least people tell me that I am, is that I try to connect the dots. So I think in most people's day-to-day functions, they're going to be consumed with what they're working on or what their team or their departments are working on. And it's not easy for people that aren't working at the strategy level to see all the various pieces and how those pieces fit together. So a lot of times you'll go through a town hall or some kind of workshop or something, and the various presenters will present their component. And what I try to do after that is to come up, and if you consider each individual presentation as a puzzle piece, what I try to do is to come up and give them the picture on the top of the box and to show them, here's how all those pieces fit together. And when they do come together, this is what the puzzle looks like. And so instead of getting wrapped up in the individual pieces, I'm trying to paint the bigger picture. And the more they understand about why we're doing something, what we need to do about it, if 600 home office employees, 700 home office employees understand why you're doing something and how you plan to do it, then they can contribute. But if you don't share it with them, how on earth can they possibly, weigh in? And then the more they know and the more connected they feel, not only do you get their effort, you also get that discretionary effort because they want to be a part of it and they know who we're serving. And we're right back to our mission and our client focus again. And it's kind of what I think is a virtuous cycle. But if people aren't contributing or don't know what we're doing, that's not their fault. That's a failure of leadership because we haven't taken the time to tell them. And so we spend a tremendous amount of time in various forums communicating to people so that they can contribute to their fullest.
And that sounds like a really intensive, what you were talking about, an internal communications undertaking that you said it was a slow drip and it lasted, for a while. And with that many employees, that's understandable. But it's nice to see that people that were maybe pushing back a little bit or not getting it, you said they're pulling now. And I would also make the observation, you said earlier that you had, people send you notes and letters all the time thanking you. And I have to think that an 8th grade or a sophomore English teacher probably doesn't get a lot of those. So that had to make a huge impact on them, that this successful businessman was like, hey, you did this years ago and thank you. I imagine they don't get a lot of that reinforcement. So that probably had a huge impact on them.
I hope so. But in the weird twist here, can you imagine what it's like to write your 2 English teachers a letter each telling them how good or effective your communication is, knowing full well that the first thing they're probably going to do is pull out a red pen and start editing whatever it is you wrote them in the first place.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I would shrink at the thought. Ugh.
So I had to put a lot of thought.
That is such, I mean, you're everything that you're expressing right now is just so communication centric and so important, and you get it, and it's just so nice to hear. I mean, obviously that's, we would have somebody of your ilk on anyway, but it's incredible to hear that. So let me ask you this question though. Can you think of a challenge in particular that you've had on this journey, or an initiative you were trying to undertake, and how you were able to use communication to further that agenda, to get that done? You were running, it might be a roadblock, it might be, hey, we need to get this done. It may be something that you were talking about just a few minutes ago, but maybe in a little bit more detail, but an instance or a story where that communications expertise worked in your favor.
Rob, I got in this job in January of 20. I think we faced nothing but challenges. It's like that.
So I'm only asking you to pick one. There's 1,000 of them, and you just get to pick one.
And there were the big ones, right? So 69 days into my tenure, COVID hit. So that was a major issue. Not long after that, you had a flash crash in the stock market. Not long after that, you had the George Floyd murder in Minnesota, which prompted us to think more clearly about what we're doing in terms of diversity and inclusion, and we focus heavily on the inclusion aspect of it. Getting people to come back to work after COVID started to go away, so the hybrid working arrangement, and then this transformation we're talking about, this idea of the big audacious goal. So there've been these large challenges, but as I think about how did we work our way through all of them, the recipe seems to be the same. There's a tremendous amount of collaboration between me and my executive leadership team. None of us, I mean, who has the answer to a global pandemic? Nobody, right?
Nobody.
So what we've had to do, and there is no manual for these types of large scale issues. And so what we do is we talk amongst ourselves constantly. We're always scanning the environment, reading different things, sharing thoughts, sharing ideas, and really working together in our own, but communicating with each other to get to the point where we feel comfortable that for First Command, for our leadership team, this is the best approach to handling this issue today. But when the world is changing so quickly, one of the things we're always very careful to not do and then to communicate is we never want to paint ourselves in the corner. We know that new information, more information is going to continue to come out. And so we never say, well, this is it, and it's always going to be this way. It's never going to change. We really try to avoid those absolutes because we know the world is going to change. We always try to take a very calm, rational approach. I mean, if you've been in the business like I've been 33 plus years, you've seen the world get out of whack a time or two, but you always know that it's going to settle back down. When you hit the extremes, that's not the time to be making extreme decisions. We really try to take a calm, rational, methodical approach to working our way through these issues. And the other thing we try to do is, for instance, when I speak to an audience, I try to envision Mark 30 years ago sitting in that audience and saying, what do I want to hear from the CEO, right? What's going to help me? What's going to speak to me and speak to me in a way that I'm going to understand it, appreciate it, and be able to do something with it. And our goal, and I've said this 1,000 times at First Command, my goal in our decisions is not to make everybody happy. I mean, I can't do it in my own household, make everybody happy with some of the decisions I make, let alone, a field force full of advisors and a whole home office full of employees. Our job is to make the best business decisions we possibly can. And our goal is that people will understand and respect the decision, even if they don't really like the decision. And I think as a leader of an organization, that's really the best that we can hope for, that people can say, well, that didn't really go in my favor, but I understand, what the issues are. They clearly articulated why they made the decision they did. And frankly, it does make good business sense, even if it doesn't really benefit me. And if we can get to that point, I think we're in really good shape. And that's what I think my leadership team and I try to do, is to make solid business decisions. And I want to say commonsensical business decisions, but I had a boss tell me a long time ago that common sense isn't so common, so I try not to go there. But I think they make sense to people, and we try to explain it in a way that everyone can understand it.
Got it. So you just mentioned your executive leadership team a couple of times, and I know that that's a really unique situation that you have there. So many talented people. You're all committed, to the use of effective communications. One thing that I've heard you talk about before that I think is really interesting is your ELT's kind of commitment to alignment. That you have this shared understanding that you won't pursue any major initiative until there is alignment. But I know I wouldn't call it a caveat there, but an important nuance. Can you talk about that? I just think it's so interesting and unique.
Yeah, happy to. And that doesn't mean we agree on everything or that every vote is a unanimous vote. That's not at all what we're looking for. And it's not that we don't want dissension or constructive conflict. In fact, we try to foster that in our conversations and really have an open dialogue. In fact, we just had a series of these meetings last week, and I really try as much as possible to have rank and titles left at the door so that when we walk into the room, it's really just a group of people who are working on a common issue and trying to come up with the best answer or solution we possibly can. I've got an incredible leadership team. There are 7 members on my executive leadership team, and I make the 8th. It's They're so skilled, they're so collaborative, and they're so open to new ideas that it really makes it fun tackling these sort of transformative issues with them. And we're dealing with a lot of, as I said earlier, what can First Command become? So we're tackling large strategic issues at this point. And we do agree that we're not moving forward with an issue until we're aligned. And that might take several meetings. It might take quite some time. It might take several discussions, but that's okay, because what we don't end up having is what you see in a lot of places where everybody seems to agree in the meeting, and then the meeting breaks, and then you don't have the alignment, and there's all these back channels and undermining of the idea that you thought you had agreement on. We don't have, and the way we avoid it is everybody gets a voice, everybody is heard, the issues are addressed, they're debated. And what I find is, if it's really an important issue and everybody's committed to solving the problem, if you grind on it long enough, you're probably going to find the right solution. And I'll also tell you, it's a place where our core values become, sometimes you think, oh, do they really live up to them? Are they really important? Or are they just a poster on a wall somewhere? I can't say that we're perfect at it, but no one could. But man, I can tell you that a decision of any substance or size always runs through our core values. In fact, it happened in my office a few months ago. The guy that runs our field force, our head of human resources, and I were working on an issue, and we came up with a solution, and we looked at it, and we looked at each other and said, "This doesn't feel right. There's something that doesn't feel right about this approach." And when we looked at it, we said, "It's courageous. I'm not so sure it shows a lot of love, and I'm not sure it's going to be as effective as we really hope it's going to be. This is not the right answer." So we literally scrapped that answer and spent another hour just working the problem. And what we came away with in round 2 was not only probably a better approach, but it lived up to all 3 of our core values. And when we looked at it, we said, this is the answer. But I was told by a mentor of mine years and years and years ago, I asked him kind of what's the key to being successful in this business. And literally, this is what he said. He said, do the right thing. That was his answer. Just do the right thing. And I can tell you that night as we were sitting here, it didn't feel like the right thing in that first version. But when we went through, came up with a second answer to the problem, it fit our core values. We knew it was the right thing, and that's what we moved forward with.
That is fascinating. So obviously, you've kind of outlined it for us, Mark. You have a unique approach to and cadence with communicating with your organization internally, the ELT, the other folks that work internally for you, and you devote much of your time communicating with those folks. Would you walk us through the various communications techniques or channels that you use, why you use them, and how you know they're effective and make you want to use them again?
Yeah, we, like any company, there are a number of emails that go out every week, but with email, you don't know if you're connecting to your audience. You don't know if they read it, if they understand it, how they react to it. So for me, there's no substitute to getting in front of people and just having open and honest dialogue. And internally we do, or in the home office, we do a number of different things. We have a town hall about every other month, and that's your traditional town hall. It'll go typically an hour and a half, some number of speakers presenting to the audience. And then we always save time at the end, 15, 20 minutes for questions. We have what we call a CEO forum, which is in the every other month, but the opposite months of our town halls. And that's really just me speaking. And those are about an hour typically. And I'll open up with a few prepared comments on a topic or two that'll get us 10 or 15 minutes into the hour. But the rest of that hour is literally just an open Q&A. And then we also have a monthly CEO breakfast where I bring in about a dozen employees at a time in their anniversary month with the firm. And we just sit around and have an open dialogue with them to understand what's on their mind and what's important to them. In every one of those venues that I just mentioned, questions come from anywhere. They can come from the audience live, but our auditorium doesn't fit all of our employees. So a lot of them tune in virtually, and they can submit questions via the chat, and some put their names on it and some submit the questions anonymously. And I don't screen out the questions. Whatever question comes, I tell them I'll give you one of three answers. I'll tell you, you'll ask a question, I'll have the information, I'll give you the answer. You'll ask a question, I won't have the information, and I'll get back to you with an answer. Or I will tell you, I have the answer, but I can't share it with you yet. And I think in the 5 years I've been the CEO, I had to use that third answer only one time. That was just a few weeks ago on a strategic issue that we're dealing with, and we're not ready to disclose it yet. To me, I hope that helps with transparency. I hope that helps with authenticity. I see people don't always like my answer, but I'm going to give you an honest answer. And sometimes the questions are repetitive or redundant, and you feel like, yes, I've answered this several times in the past. And every once in a while, you got to let your own personality and your sense of humor come through as well, so people see you got a human side as well.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot about frequency. That's a lot of communicating with your folks, which is fantastic. The consistency of holding those meetings.
Sorry to interrupt you, but one other thing too, and then we do a similar thing with the field. We have an all-field call. We have a forum that our field lead, the head of our field force runs as well, similar to the town halls and the CEO forum. And then we spend a lot of time getting out to the field as well, and going to our individual districts and meeting in person with our field, field leaders, the DAs, advisors, support staff in the various districts we have as well.
It's a lot of opportunity for input and learning. And I'm sure you're very consistent in the information that you're sharing across all those different platforms. It's got to be so helpful. Yeah. I really like your openness to questions in particular, that you make time for and prioritize, and that you don't screen them. That's fantastic.
Very transparent.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think this is our last question. Can you believe that? Wow, this has gone so fast. Your job puts you in a lot of big format presentation environments, often in front of huge audiences. What advice do you have for people who maybe aren't so enthusiastic about getting up and to speak in front of large groups?
You're right. I mean, I get in front of audiences, but there's never a time when I don't get nervous about it going up. And for me, I think when I stop being nervous about presenting in front of an audience is maybe the time I should hang it up, because I feel like maybe I don't care enough as much as I should. But we're far from that. I think for me, when I think about going in front of an audience, my motivation is I'm trying to tell the story, and I want them to be a part of the story, and I want them to help write the end of the story, right? Because the story isn't over yet. The story will go on and on and on, but I want people to be a part of it. And it's not always easy to get up in front of those large audiences, but if I'm not bringing them along and helping them understand what, as I said before, what we're doing, why we're doing, and so on, then they can't fully contribute. And there's nothing more exciting for me than for people to see the idea, buy into the idea, and then want to contribute to the idea as well, right? And so, and I try to have fun with it. I mean, it's not always fun writing a long speech or standing in front of 1,000 people to make a presentation. But this is our company, this is our mission, and this is who we've all signed up to serve. And there's so many opportunities here that I'm excited about the messages, because things are going really well at First Command. So there's just tremendous upside where things could be even better than they already are. And I love sharing that message, and I love giving people the opportunity to not just to be told what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, but to turn that around and say, we're looking for your help, we're looking for your input, we're looking for your contributions, and together we can all do this. And if these strategies and these changes we're trying to make all come true, there'll be more than enough credit to go around, so people aren't going to have to go looking for credit. But yeah, I remember in my early days I didn't necessarily love presenting, and I was always nervous, and probably hopefully have improved my skill set over time. But right now I just try to have fun with it and connect. Try to make the room as small as I possibly can, maybe is a way to say it, where you're really not, you're speaking with them, not just speaking at them. And I think the more people feel like you're talking with them and trying to have a conversation, which is why I try to be so open with the Q&A, so they don't feel like they're just being, a big part of communication. It's not just the transmit, right? Like people have to hear it, understand it. What you ideally want is them to play it back to say, hey, they really got what we were talking about. And so the more we're able to do that, the more it just ensures we're on the same page. And if we can get people aligned, again, you can solve a lot of problems that way, or prevent a lot of problems that way.
You know what I love? One of the things I love about this podcast is I hear great advice, and then it's so good. I write it down. It seems so simple. I love it's not just the transmit. They have to play it back.
Yeah.
And you probably say that or think that 1,000 times a day. And I'm like, that is brilliant. That's a perfect way to express that. Mark, we cannot thank you enough for your time, for your expertise, for your candor. I mean, this is all just amazing stuff. And I hope people that listen to this really kind of embrace some of the things. I know everybody has different leadership styles, but I hope they embrace some of the things, because I feel like everything I'm hearing from you when it comes to transparency and frequency and everything else just makes perfect sense. So thanks for joining us on Can You Hear Me today. It has been an honor having you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Good. I deeply appreciate you sharing your expertise and just knowledge. I think everybody can appreciate why we had you on as a guest today. It's clear. You're a great leader and a great communicator, and the way you tie those things together, you just don't see that often. So thank you. You're really, really good at this.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Got a lot
guys.
of good coaching along the way.
Yeah. Well, no amount of coaching can give you the natural ability that you have. It's truly, it's remarkable. So I guess that's going to do it for another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Eileen Rochford. If you'd like to weigh in on our podcast, maybe give us an idea for a future topic, just give us a shout at our our LinkedIn page. We don't have Facebook. Where'd that come from? Huh? Or Can You Hear Me LinkedIn page? Come on.
That's right. You can't miss it. Pretty good traffic on there, and we would love to hear all the ideas, and that's how we generate some of the, other guests and topics and that sort of thing. My name's Rob Johnson. We thank you for listening, and if you like the episode, please consider giving us a review on any of the platforms where you can find Can You Hear Me, Apple, Spotify, and many more. Your reviews are helping other potential listeners find our show. Thanks for listening.